Mary had a little lamb.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Oh, that's my fault. Wait, hang on.
More breaking news.
Oh.
ABC News has learned that the legal team representing the first whistleblower is now representing a second whistleblower. Attorney Mark Zaid told me that this second whistleblower is a member of the intelligence community with firsthand information on some of the allegations at issue. The second whistleblower has been interviewed by the Inspector General, and his attorneys say they have the full protection of the whistleblower law because they provided information directly to the Inspector General. The second whistleblower has not yet communicated directly with the congressional committees conducting this investigation.
Fatality.
Yeah, this is pretty much done. All that we need now is a trial. So happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday. The weekend was, it was a weekend. For you, I hope you had a good one. For me, but the news just keeps on breaking. It was bizarro world. The Sunday shows, especially, that was a whole alternative universe. I have to tell you, this whole chapter is the one that's going to bring the president down. This whole, hey, investigate, Zelensky needs to investigate Biden, and China needs to investigate Biden, and all that. And Trump standing on the lawn, which is where we last left off on Friday, where Trump was standing on the south lawn of the White House and saying, I think that, what went on in China with Biden and Biden's son, and that these are stone cold thieves, and that and we debunked that for you pretty much in real time to show you that Hunter Biden was advising investors into a fund in China. He was not an investor. He was an advisor for investors who wanted to invest in this fund, right? And that the fund only raised $4.2 million, or pretty much what Air America raised. Okay, tried to launch an entire network on that. So that's just a fake story. And what's crazy is that people who heard what they heard and saw what they saw and understood what they understood about the president saying, China, if you're listening, I want you to investigate the Bidens, right?
Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens. It's a very simple answer. They should investigate the Bidens, because how does a company that's newly formed, and all these companies, if you look at, and by the way,
he doesn't know what he's talking about.
China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine. So I would say that President Zelensky, if it were me, I would recommend that they start an investigation into the Bidens, because nobody has any doubt that they weren't crooked. That was a crooked deal, 100%. He had no knowledge of energy, didn't know the first thing about it. All of a sudden, he's getting $50,000 a month, plus a lot of other things. Nobody has any doubt. And they got rid of a prosecutor who was a very tough prosecutor. They got rid of him. Now they're trying to make it the opposite way, but they got rid. So if I were the president, I would certainly recommend that of Ukraine. I haven't, but it's certainly something we can start thinking about, because I'm sure that President Xi does not like being under that kind of scrutiny, where billions of dollars is taken out of his country by a guy that just got kicked out of the Navy. He got kicked out of the Navy. All of a sudden, he's getting billions of dollars. You know what they call that? They call that a payoff.
Oh, my God. So on the Sunday shows, the entire compromised grand old party went on the TV, and one after another, they repeated a talking point. Let's see if you can figure out what the talking point was. Let's see if you can find it.
Do you think it's okay for President Trump to ask China to launch an investigation of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden?
I don't know if that's a real request or him just needling the press, knowing that you guys were going to get outraged by it. He's pretty good at getting everybody fired up, and he's been doing that for a while. And the media responded right on task.
But you're one of the loudest critics of China and its human rights abuses. I mean, is it okay for him to ask to say that?
I don't think it's a real request. I think he did it to gig you guys. I think he did it to provoke you to ask me and others and get outraged by it. Like I said, I mean, he plays it like a violin and everybody falls right into it. But that's not a real request.
That's not a real request. All right, let's see. Here's Senator Roy Blunt.
Are you comfortable with what the president has said here in this call for foreign governments, Ukraine and China, to investigate his political opponent?
Well, I doubt if the China comment was serious, to tell you the truth.
You don't take the president at his word.
The president loves to go out on the White House driveway. I haven't talked to him about this. I don't know what the president was thinking, but I knew he loves to bait the press, and he does that almost every day to see what you'll talk about, and maybe what he was hoping was
so you don't
somebody
believe
in the press
the president,
will say,
but is that appropriate to ask for a foreign government to interfere in the election?
I don't imagine that's what he was doing. Certainly we shouldn't expect the Chinese, the Russians, or any of our other national security adversaries to be helpful in any way. And if they do come forward with information, I think you'd have to seriously question whether there was any veracity to that information or not.
He likes to go out on the White House driveway and joke, right?
Threshold question. Do you think it's appropriate for President Trump to ask China and Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
George, you really think he was serious about thinking that China's going to investigate the Biden family?
He said it right there in public.
I think he's getting, as I think Senator Rubio said a couple days ago, I think he's getting the press all spun up about this. Remember, this is the president who's been tougher on China than any other president.
What?
He wants to make sure China quits stealing America's intellectual property. He wants to make sure they start abiding by international trade norms. And tougher than anyone. He's put tariffs on China, and you really think he says, oh, the same guy who's been tougher on China now thinks, oh, China's going to investigate the Biden. He was just making a statement to just underscore how wrong it is what took place here with Hunter Biden getting these deals that he got. That's all he's doing.
So the president asked China to investigate. We're not supposed to take the president at his word?
I think Senator Rubio said it best. This is the president. You guys would think after 3.5 years, you would, with the campaign and everything else, you'd figure out something.
Yet he said in public the exact same thing he said in private to the Ukrainian president.
I wish there would be the same outrage for this, for what the president said about China, the same outrage that there was when we saw when the Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee hired a foreigner who worked with Russians to dig up dirt on the president, put it in a document that was given to the Department of Justice, and then the FBI used that document to go to a secret court to spy on the Trump campaign.
Okay,
and you guys weren't outraged about that. But now the president makes a statement about China. The guy who's been tougher on China than any other president, and you think this is somehow a big deal.
So should I conclude from that you don't think it would be appropriate for the president to ask China to investigate the Bidens?
I think he's just making this. I'm just telling you what the statement is. You asked me about the statement. I'm saying I don't think anyone in America really believes, except people maybe in the press and some Democrats in Congress, really believe that the president of the United States thinks China is going to investigate. He's making a statement.
Well, he's asking for it, and the president hasn't said he's joking. He said a very direct statement. He wasn't smiling there. Sure. He wasn't laughing. It wasn't a joke.
Not only wasn't it a joke, but he accused Joe Biden of taking a payoff from China for having a soft on China foreign policy. I mean, the whole thing is not a joke. But this is what they're going to do when confronted with the president doing stupid anti-American things. Now, last week it was all about corruption. It's all about corruption. It's about corruption. Shouldn't we have a right to look at corruption? Shouldn't we have a right about corruption? Yeah, we should look at corruption. You should look at China's corruption. Absolutely. You should look at Saudi Arabia's corruption, where they dismembered a columnist for the Washington Post with a bone saw and carried him out in garbage bags. You should look at Prince Salman, who, tortured his family members in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and killed one of them to coerce them into giving all their money over to him. There's plenty of corruption in this world if they were interested in corruption, but they're only interested in Biden. Only Biden.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Fox News has confirmed a report there is now a second whistleblower in the Trump impeachment case. As first reported by ABC News, another intelligence official has spoken to the intelligence community inspector general and says he has firsthand knowledge of some of the allegations in the original complaint. The impeachment inquiry has now formally reached the White House, with House Democrats issuing a subpoena for records on President Trump's contacts with Ukraine and his request for that country to investigate Joe Biden. President Trump acknowledges Democrats now have the votes to impeach him, but he refuses to comply with their subpoena, challenging them to hold a formal vote authorizing their investigation.
Yeah, too bad for you. You don't get to choose the rules of the House. You don't get to set them. You don't get to enforce them. You don't get to impose them. You don't get to, suggest them. You have nothing to do with the House of Representatives. It is a co-equal branch of government, and it doesn't have to listen to anything that you would like or wish or want or demand that it does. That's just a fact. So here we are with the president now defying even more subpoenas. And Pence as well got a subpoena over the weekend. And he is, not sure if he will comply with, a subpoena to produce documents. I mean, the whole freaking thing. I've said this a million times. It's going to take a RICO Act to indict this entire administration. Every last one of them that is still around Donald Trump at this point has dirty, filthy hands. And all of these GOP senators. You know what's really interesting about, the Sunday shows was Jim Jordan showed up, and Jim Jordan, he was joking. He wasn't really saying China, if you're listening. Roy Blunt, old, creaky, old line Republican Roy Blunt. He was just joking. Marco Rubio from the swing state of Florida. He was just joking. He didn't really mean for China to... I mean, this is just, it's bizarre. But the worst of all had to be Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin last week, just before this appearance on Meet the Press, said last week that he was told about a quid pro quo involving the Ukrainian investigation into the 2016 election. 2016. I mean, this is a president who says we have to fight the wars we can win, and we have to pull out of and leave our allies, the Kurds. It's a whole other topic, but this is disgusting. Backstabbing the Kurds, and you know that I'm a fan of the Kurds. You know I am. But anyway, so that's a whole other thing. Just backstabbing the Kurds and serving them up for a genocide. So I just it blows my mind. But anyway, last week Ron Johnson said that he was completely aware of a quid pro quo, meaning Trump needed a statement from President Zelensky, the newly elected leader of Ukraine, saying that he would open an investigation into Hunter Biden in writing, and that his $1 million donor, Mr. Sondland, who is the ambassador to the EU, and Ukraine's not part of the EU, so why he stuck his nose in there is obviously he's a Trump loyalist. So here you have this guy who gave $1 million to Donald Trump's inaugural committee, and the quid pro quo there is he got an ambassadorship, right? And so now he's saying with Volker, who testified last week, we'll craft a document, we'll have Zelensky sign it, and you have to let Zelensky know that the release of military aid is predicated on him signing this document. And the Zelensky administration writes back, and this guy Yermak, who's the spokesman for Zelensky, is saying, well, give us a date. Give us a date when we can meet with the United States. Give us a date when we can meet with Trump. We can't sign this agreement. We can't. We don't want to get involved in your elections. We just don't want to do this. Then you're not going to get the military aid. And Ron Johnson last week said that he knew this, that he was aware that President Trump blocked the military aid from Ukraine, and that Ron Johnson himself personally had asked the Trump administration to allow him to tell Zelensky that the aid was forthcoming, that it would come if he would just do this quid pro quo. And Trump wouldn't let Ron Johnson tell them that the aid was ever going to come. So then Ron Johnson proceeded to accuse former members of the FBI and the CIA on television on Sunday of conspiring to set the president up and perhaps even Paul Manafort. I mean, this was just the sickest interview I'd ever seen, knowing that just last week Ron Johnson said that he was aware of the quid pro quo, that he understood that it happened, that he had gone to Ukraine with Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut, and that the two of them were trying to reassure Zelensky that the money would, but they were aware. They were aware that Trump was doing this. And now all of a sudden, he doesn't trust the CIA. He doesn't trust. I mean, this is bizarre.
So, Senator, do you not believe the Russians interfered in the presidential elections to benefit Donald Trump?
They absolutely did.
Well, they
absolutely did. And I don't know to what extent the Ukrainians did. I don't know to what extent DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign were involved in kind of juicing up the Ukrainian involvement in this as well.
You just ask
there are a lot of unanswered questions. Chuck, I just want the truth. The American people want the truth.
So do you not trust do you not trust the FBI? You don't trust the CIA?
No,
I'm just very confused here.
Absolutely
you don't trust
not.
either
After
of those
Peter Strzok
agencies.
and Lisa Page.
Okay.
After James Comey.
You believe the FBI and the CIA,
John
these
Brennan. No, I don't
agencies?
trust any of these guys in the Obama administration. I don't trust any of them.
You don't trust them now? You trust them now?
Now.
No, I didn't trust them back then.
Now.
And you don't trust them now?
I do not trust John Brennan. I do not trust.
Do you trust the CIA and FBI now? Because none of them have come to any of the conclusions you're trying to come to. I'm just curious. Do you trust them now?
Now.
Now, who are you talking about?
The CIA and the FBI.
I don't trust Andrew McCabe.
Do you
I don't
trust
Andrew McCabe. I don't trust James Comey. I don't trust Peter Strzok. I don't trust John Brennan.
Wow. Do you trust the intelligence community now? And he goes, who are you talking about? Who are you talking about, Willis? The CIA, the FBI. Do you trust Chris Wray? Do you trust anybody over? Mike Pompeo took over the CIA before he became Secretary of State. Do you trust anybody? Who are you talking about? Now, do you trust them now? And he won't answer the question. And then the question was that, do you think that Paul Manafort was set up? Did you think that?
You think Paul Manafort was framed?
In the 2016 election. And also the fact that Europe is not stepping up the plate.
You think Paul Manafort was framed?
No. Yeah, obviously he was convicted, but there's a lot of other stuff going on back then, too. You know, Hillary Clinton's campaign was searching for dirt, maybe not only on Paul Manafort, but trying to keep Vice President Biden out of the primary for the Democratic campaign. So again, Chuck, the bottom line is there are so many questions unanswered. So again, ask John Brennan.
Let me ask you this:
What was Peter Strzok? What did Peter Strzok mean when the sisters began leaking like mad?
Yeah.
What was the CIA scorned and worried about? What were they kicking into overdrive? There's a key question I want answered among, I don't know, about 100
So, Senator, do you not believe the Russians interfered in the presidential elections to benefit Donald Trump?
They absolutely did.
So what's your question?
Did, and I don't know to what extent the Ukrainians did. I don't know to what extent DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign were involved in kind of juicing up the Ukrainian involvement in this as well.
You just ask
there are a lot of unanswered questions. Chuck, I just want the truth.
You don't want the truth because I got a funny feeling you got dirty hands too. You were over in Ukraine. Something went on there. I don't know what. I do know that these senators kept going to Russia. They kept going to Russia. The whole time Russia was interfering. These GOP senators kept going there. I don't know what the hell, but this is bizarro world and dangerous.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Democrats see it. Are you convinced Republicans see it?
No. Am I convinced that many Republicans on the Hill see it? Yes. Am I convinced that many Republicans on the Hill are willing to say they see it? No. And that, of course, is a great difference between Watergate and what we're witnessing now, because in Watergate, a lot of the heroes were Republicans who called on Nixon to leave office, who thought he had committed high crimes and misdemeanors, and voted in the House Judiciary Committee for articles of impeachment. But we're also witnessing something we did not see in Watergate, which is a meltdown by a president who is demonstrably unhinged. And certainly I've talked to Republicans who do use that word. And they're concerned about this, more than concerned about it, almost to the extent that they're concerned about the underlying conduct of the President of the United States, because we are watching in real time. We've never seen a president go off the way Trump has in the last few days. when the Mueller investigation was revealed, Trump said, and it's in the Mueller report, my presidency is over. And then he said, I'm effed.
Right.
This is a terrible thing. And then he became unhinged for a while in public. Nothing like this. This is even more extreme.
This is really frightening. And then overnight, the president was talking to President Erdogan, who is a dictator in Turkey. You know that he's a strong man, right? And Erdogan is wanting to kill the Kurds. And for a very long time, the president has said that, if Erdogan touches the Kurds, but because the Kurds, I just want you to understand, the Kurds fought ISIS. The Kurds are a group of Turkish citizens who believe that there is a portion of Turkey that belongs to them legally that should be Kurdistan, okay? And the Kurds decided to ally with the United States a long time ago. And the Kurds have been fighting with the United States. In fact, they did most of the heavy fighting, most of it, because there's only 2,000 troops in northern Syria, which, look at a map, you'll see Turkey, northern Syria, right? The Kurds did all the life risking and all of the heavy, heavy fighting against ISIS to clean out Raqqa and to clean out Aleppo. And when they captured the ISIS fighters, the Kurds held them and are still holding them. The Kurds are the president lies to the American people and says that we're holding ISIS fighters and he wants Europe to take them. He wants, Turkey, or he wants, Germany, or he wants, listen, that's just a lie. It's just a flat out lie. The Kurds are holding the ISIS fighters. The Kurds have camps of ISIS fighters that they are holding. Now, all of a sudden, overnight, something happened with Trump and Turkey, and I'm not sure what Erdogan has on Donald Trump, but it's easy to see that there are plenty of leaders around the world who have stuff on our president because our president is a thug. Our president operates as a mobster. Our president treats the presidency as if he's, as if he's the head of the five families. The president has more conversations that have been, listened in on or overheard, or transcripts that have to be hidden in a vault that is supposed to contain only covert operations. They've got all of the president's conversations with North Korea and the Saudis who murder journalists and who murder their own family members and who behead people with bone saws in embassies in Turkey, no less. And the president will excuse all this. And the president, obviously, there's a conversation in the Oval Office with Sergei Kislyak and Sergei Lavrov, where the president admits that he knows that Russia interfered in the U.S. election, but that he thinks it's fine because America interferes in other countries' elections. This was his rationale for saying to Russia, it's, if you're listening, please come help us. And then after the fact, covering it up and saying, oh, no, it was Ukraine, Russia's enemy. I mean, there's so much betrayal going on in this White House with our allies, and so much love that the president is showing for our enemies like North Korea, like, Saudi Arabia, who attacked us on 9/11, by the way. And also for Turkey, that has turned that place, which is a NATO ally, into a freaking dictatorship, right? And so overnight, I don't know what Erdogan has on Donald Trump. I don't know. But something happened overnight, and Donald Trump said this morning in a freaking tweet that he's going to serve up the Kurds for a genocide. And the Kurds are our allies. The Kurds have fought and done all of this hard work. I remember being in Istanbul. I went to Turkey, and I remember being in Istanbul. And I remember meeting the Kurdish fighters, and they loved Americans because they were risking their lives for us. They were literally helping us fight ISIS, and they were really proud of it. They were really, really proud of it. And these beautiful boys and girls, and they're young girls too, that fight in the defense force, the Kurdish Syrian Defense Force, which is the Kurdish army. They fight for us. They did so much dying for us. And now all of a sudden, overnight last night, the president says that he's going to we only have 2,000 soldiers in the area. And what our 2,000 soldiers do is they create a safe zone between Turkey and the Kurds to protect the Kurds as the Kurds risk their life for us. And so in exchange for them risking their lives, we create this safe zone for them. And overnight, the president said he's taking out the safe zone, and he's going to let Turkey invade. I mean, this was bizarre. This was Richard Engel reporting from northern Syria.
Late last night, the White House announced that U.S. troops are beginning a withdrawal from northern Syria near the Turkish border. The decision followed a phone call President Trump had with Turkey's President Erdogan yesterday. In a statement from the press secretary, the Trump administration says that, quote, Turkey will soon be moving forward with its long-planned operation into northern Syria. The United States Armed Forces will not support or be involved in the operation, and United States forces, having defeated the ISIS territorial caliphate, will no longer be in the immediate area. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel joins us now by phone. Richard, what do you have?
Well, this is a major development, and Joe might be right that the American people will eventually remove President Trump, but he is president right now, and that has very immediate questions for and concerns for the people who live in northern Syria. I'm talking about the Kurds. This is a population of U.S. allies, the people who joined with American Special Operations Forces and defeated the ISIS caliphate. They're probably about 50 to 60,000 of the fighters. They live in an area, they control an area of approximately 2 million people. Oh. They have been protected by American forces on the ground. Those Americans there have been making sure that the Turks across the border do not come in and invade their enclave.
I'm going to finish this. This was the deal that we had with the Kurds. We will protect you from Turkey's genocide upon your people. You go fight ISIS. And they did. And they won.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
And that has very immediate questions for and concerns for the people who live in northern Syria. I'm talking about the Kurds. This is a population of U.S. allies, the people who joined with American Special Operations Forces and defeated the ISIS caliphate. They're probably about 50 to 60,000 of the fighters. They live in an area, they control an area of approximately 2 million people. They have been protected by American forces on the ground. Those Americans there have been making sure that the Turks across the border do not come in and invade their enclave, and they fear that if the Turks do that, there will be massive ethnic cleansing. The Americans have now been ordered to stand aside. The Turkish president has said numerous times that he is going to invade. So our allies who lost 10,000 people fighting against ISIS, who did in fact defeat the ISIS caliphate, now worried because of this decision, overnight, this surprise decision, that they will be genocide. I just spoke to a Kurdish official. He said the Americans have betrayed us.
Oh my
they
God.
have opened the door for a Turkish massacre. We are no longer able to fight against ISIS. ISIS might return to the region, and the only one responsible, if that happens, will be the Americans. They are the ones responsible for this. So there is a state of absolute concern, panic even, among our very close Kurdish allies.
That is so sick and sad. This president is such a traitor. I mean, these people have fought and died and shed blood to beat back ISIS. They did. They cleaned out Raqqa. They cleaned out Aleppo. And all we did, we gave 2,000 troops to the effort. And what we said our troops would do for them is create a no-go zone between Turkey and northern Syria so the Kurds could actually get rid of ISIS. The Kurds have control of the ISIS fighters. The ISIS fighters are basically, I won't say jailed, because they don't have jails, but they're encamped, okay? And they are being protected, I don't know how else to say it. The Kurds have custody, let's say, okay, of ISIS fighters. Now, if Turkey goes in there and Turkey starts a genocide of the Kurdish people who did all this for us, what happens to those ISIS fighters, number one? Number two, how is this morally okay? Number three, what message does it send to other allies who send their sons and daughters to, join us in our fights against Saudis that, fly airplanes into our buildings, and then you put together a coalition of, the willing, right? This is such a traitor. This is such a bizarre thing. And you got to wonder, what is it that Erdogan has on Donald Trump that would make Donald Trump say, we'll stand aside, go ahead and start your genocide against the Kurdish people? I can't stomach saying it. I can't, because this is the problem with Americans who don't have passports. Americans who have never left this country, who don't have any idea what allied nations do for us or what other countries, do for us. Who is our friend? Who isn't our friend? Being in a country that really doesn't like you, like Russia. I was in Russia, and I swear to God, those people hate us. They talk about Iranians, death to America. Russians, too. Trust me, they hate America. They despise Americans. It was such an odd experience to be there. And it's not, passive hatred. They were like, you'd be walking down the street, and a Russian girl could be walking down the street, and she hears you speak English, or she sees that you're an American just by your jeans, okay, or just by the kind of clothes you wear. They will literally ram into you and start screaming at you. They hate you. It's so unbelievable what it's like to travel and find out what it's like to be in a country that hates Americans versus to know the Kurds, to talk to them. For them to be so proud of everything they were doing for the United States, so that the United States would just give them a little bit of a no-go zone between the people who want to commit genocide against them, and in exchange, they will fight ISIS and beat back the caliphate, which they did. And now Donald Trump's going to turn his back. Now I got to turn my back on you? What the hell is going on? The alliances that we have are all broken up. And who's got to be thrilled about this? Vladimir. This is why I get very upset when people sit and opine on television or whatever, that all of this that's going on with Russia interfering and Russia choosing Trump and Russia, and hacking on the side of Trump, and Russia hacking our state polling places, and, hacking the software where, that goes into the machine, all this stuff, that it's all to get rid of sanctions. Oh, how blind. No, it's not all to get rid of sanctions. The sanctions are for window dressing, okay? Just like the Chinese tariffs, okay? Now Donald Trump's going to use Chinese tariffs as a point of leverage with China if China will produce or manufacture or get dirt on Hunter Biden to help him electorally. Same thing with Turkey. This is just so crazy. Turkey wants to kill the Kurds, and Donald Trump is going to let them because Vladimir Putin wants Syria. And he's been fighting on the side of Assad all along. And this is why when Donald Trump was in the Oval Office with the Sergeys and he gave them covert intelligence information about Syria and what was going on in Syria, it was so offensive because obviously Russia was not fighting on the same side we were in Syria. We were fighting on the side of the Kurds, and now you're going to let the Kurds get killed, and this clears the way for Vlad and Bashar al-Assad to take control of Syria without any. This is what, the Russians want Ukraine. It is the largest country in Europe. They want Ukraine, and they want Syria. Why? Because they got a port that goes out into the, the shipping lanes, right, in the Middle East, and Russia doesn't have a port in the Middle East, and they need one. That's why they went after Crimea. It had a port. It's all about shipping, oil and gas, and it's all about that. Everything that we're talking about has to do with oil and gas. And I'm telling you that the only way we'll ever have peace in this world is to make what they have worthless. There's about to be a genocide, a slaughter. Robert in California.
Oh my God, Randy! Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I'm on speakerphone. I hope I can keep it this way. So much that you talk about, so much truth, so much across the board. Let Tom Steyer, the guy that's running for president, with all his money and all these Democrats, investigate the Trump. Never mind about the Bidens, investigate the Trump, right?
Sorry? I don't know what you're talking about.
They're so sick and they're so disruptive and they're so against everything that we do as a nation.
Uh-huh.
They're Ivanka Trump, everything with China. She's, all these patents, everything. Let's investigate the
What do you
Trump
think the House of Representatives is doing? That's where an investigation belongs.
They're trying to, but nobody sees the point because they don't get enough coverage. You're like the most coverage that people get.
No, that's not true. I mean, people are, every network except for Fox and Breitbart and those right-wing lunatic, websites. They're trying to explain all this to the American people. The problem is that what you have here are witnesses who need to testify behind closed doors because they're talking about intelligence. They're talking about, things that are protected. But
when this president undermines our intelligence on TV, nobody believes our intelligence. I mean, why is that like that? It's got to be presented.
What should be really offensive to you is when you see a U.S. senator from Wisconsin sitting on the TV where last week he admitted that he knew that there was a quid pro quo in the Ukrainian situation, holding up their ability to defend themselves against Russia. And then all of a sudden on Sunday, somebody showed him something or somebody played him a tape of something he said or a text message and said, you better change your story. And he does. And he says, I don't trust the intelligence community. I don't trust these whistleblowers. That's sick. That's like right in front of your face. That is a guy who did a 180 in a matter of 3 days. Something is so the Trump administration looks like it's blackmailing everybody. I mean, they went whole hog on Mitt Romney this weekend, who, by the way, I still say Mitt Romney is running. Which brings up a separate issue. What's Romney going to do now that the GOP canceled all the primaries in like Arizona, right? They canceled a whole bunch of primaries.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
But this impulsive decision by the president has undone all the gains we've made, thrown the region into further chaos. Iran is licking their chops. And if I'm an ISIS fighter, I've got a second lease on life. So to those who think ISIS has been defeated, you will soon see. And to Turkey, you've destroyed the relationship, what little you had with the U.S. Congress. And I will do everything I can to sanction Turkey's military and their economy if they step 1 foot into Syria.
But they are.
I hope I'm making myself clear how short-sighted and irresponsible this decision is, in my view.
Senator, what about listening to the experts, the generals that are helping our president? Because I know that General Joe Dunford just stepped down a week ago.
Yeah.
And the new U.S. military top officer is General Mark Milley. Do you think that he was recommending this?
I would be shocked. I woke up this morning. This whole thing with the whistleblower is a political setup.
No.
I like President Trump. I've tried to help him. This, to me, is just unnerving to its core. To say to the American people ISIS has been destroyed in Syria is not true.
Hey, so there's Lindsey Graham weighing in on, listen, I tried to help the president. I said, the whistleblower thing is garbage, although the second whistleblower, the first whistleblower, those two people, everything that they said has all checked out. I mean, it's everything to date validates the information that the whistleblowers, plural, have provided. It's like a one-stop shop. The whistleblower's complaint to the inspector general is like one-stop shopping to try and figure out what in the world went on with, threatening another ally of ours, Ukraine. Now, Lindsey Graham can see a second ally of ours, the Kurds, are being threatened with a genocide. And he's like, I tried to help the president, but there is no helping this president. He's just an impulse guy. This is not an impulse. This has been going on. This is something that Erdogan has wanted for a really, really stinking long time. And Donald Trump has said that he wouldn't let this happen. And then all of a sudden, he had a phone call last night with Erdogan. And this morning, we all woke up to tweets that he's, going to allow a freaking massacre of the Kurds at the hands of the Turks, at the hands of an autocrat in Turkey. Now, if this happens, Turkey's got to be kicked out of NATO. It was iffy to let them in the first place. This is like why Russia is not in the G8. Okay, you don't get to be protected by the United States of America when you are committing a genocide or when you are invading a neighbor. That's why Russia's not in the G8, which is a group of the 8 richest economies. Also, Russia isn't one of the 8 richest economies. It's like it's like the 8th most corrupt economy. Talk about corruption. Russia is like number 8, and that's including places like Sudan. It's saying a lot about corruption. But Russia is like, 15th or 20th, but we let them into the G8 as hey, maybe they'll be better behaved if they were in the G8. They got kicked out of the G8 because they invaded Crimea and they annexed it. And 13,000 Ukrainians are dead fighting back Russian occupation in the eastern part of Ukraine right now. So now you got the Kurds who fought and died and bled for us to beat back ISIS, to hold those ISIS prisoners for us, which is what they are doing. And all of a sudden, overnight last night, the president makes a decision. Now, it's no wonder Dunford quit. It's no wonder Mattis resigned. You remember when Mattis resigned? Mattis resigned when Donald Trump tweeted that he was going to withdraw all the troops from Syria. Mattis resigned like the next day. Brett McGurk, who was the national security advisor prior to John Bolton, he resigned too. Now he teaches at Stanford University, McGurk does, right? And he said about his former boss, Donald Trump, he called this move that he did overnight, quote, a gift to Russia, a gift to Iran and ISIS, quote, he makes impulsive decisions with no knowledge or deliberation. He sends military personnel into harm's way with no backing. He blusters, and then he leaves our allies exposed when adversaries call his bluff or he confronts a hard phone call. There's a similar defect at the core of U.S. foreign policies across the board. Maximalist objections for minimalist president combined with no process to assess facts, develop options, or prepare for contingencies. Our personnel are left exposed at the slightest moment of friction for this president. Brett McGurk used to be Bush's guy, okay? He said last night's statement on the Twitter about Donald Trump with regard to our allies, the Kurds, demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of anything happening on the ground. This is bizarre how he's changing American foreign policy to side with human rights abusers, dictators, autocrats, oligarchs, and freaking ex-KGB guys. It is an amazing thing to watch the United States of America become nothing more than Russia. It's a horrible place, Russia. Horrible. And our economy's tanking, too. Like I said, 1/5 of our economy is officially in recession. I was reading over the weekend how trucking is in a recession. Services are in a recession. Manufacturing is in a recession. The miners lost another 3,000 jobs. Truckers lost 4,200 jobs in the last quarter. I mean, he is destroying everything, and it seems to be at the behest of autocrats around the world for his own personal benefit. I swear to God, this man must look at Vladimir Putin, who is arguably one of the richest men in the world. Why? Because Vladimir Putin gets kickback from every oligarch he allows to operate, right? So he gets vig. He's a mobster, Vladimir Putin is. And so if he allows you to open up a company, if he allows you to, do a catering company, or he allows you to do, oil, gas, whatever, then you have to kick back 40% of everything you make to him. That's how Vladimir Putin is the richest man in the world, okay? And Trump must look at that and say, I must be an idiot. Here I am, trying to figure out how to beat the house in, owning casinos. And there is no way, to make money in casinos. There is no, because I don't know what I'm doing. And I can't make money in real estate. The last thing I built was like in the 1980s, and people are scraping my name off the side of their buildings. They don't want to have anything to do with me. People are literally paying me to go away so I don't manage their buildings anymore. And now you have Donald Trump, he always stiffed the contractor. He always stiffed the people that did the work for him. But now he's stiffing people who did the dying for us. Now, instead of just going broke because you did business with Donald Trump, now you're going to lose your freaking life. This is so bad. And it's all because he thinks that people who work for a living, people who build businesses, people who fight in the military, we're all suckers. We're all losers. The way to real money is to cheat, to lie, to get mobbed up. The way to get real money is to let people pay you to open businesses. He likes the whole donor situation. He likes that. You give him $1 million, you can become the ambassador to the EU. Like Sondland. Everything is for sale. America is for sale. And we have been for a while. We really have been. But the amount of foreign money now, the amount of people in Washington with foreign investments, with lobbying work for countries like Ukraine, the amount of, like Viktor Yanukovych, like Russian oligarchs representing these people, cleaning up their images, telling them to become, philanthropists and put their names on things to make them softer and more acceptable to the American. This is crazy. Our country we're not even, we're a kleptocracy, which is a sort of tough word, but really what it is. We're becoming a freaking communist country. Oh my God.
Clear. All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Just so you know, I was investigated. Okay, me, in my campaign.
No.
I ran, I won. I was investigated. You won't say that, will you?
Because it didn't happen.
I was investigated, and they think it could have been by UK. They think it could have been by Australia. They think it could have been by Italy. So when you get down to it, I was investigated by the Obama administration. By the Obama administration, I was investigated. So when these people talk, but as far as I'm concerned, what I want to look at and what we want to investigate, anything having to do with corruption.
This man is insane. Obviously, he's, interested in battles he can win. He's married to a conspiracy theory. We all know that nobody investigated Donald Trump's campaign. What was being investigated was Russia. And that's why there's 12 indictments by 12 named GRU, Russian intelligence operatives, and Vladimir Putin's Russia. It was a counterintelligence investigation into Russia. Nobody investigated Donald Trump until Donald Trump fired James Comey and went on Lester Holt and said he fired him because of this Russia thing. That's when everybody went, whoa, what is the deal with this guy? So, This is all a conspiracy theory, and he's doing it because he's being impeached because this man is enriching himself and using the presidency to help get dirt on political opponents, which is illegal. Robert in Phoenix.
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Hey.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question about precedents for Supreme Court rulings and stuff. Has there ever been a Supreme Court ruling where a departmental memo has superseded the Constitution?
Where a departmental memo?
Yeah, like
you mean
the
like the
DOJ
OLC?
memo?
You mean the OLC?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
No.
Right. Exactly. So why don't they just go to the Supreme Court and go, okay, you want to rule on this? Rule. You want to rule that a departmental memo supersedes the Constitution? Go ahead. Because as far as I read the Constitution, it says no man is above the law. It doesn't say the president's excluded from that.
What it does say, though, in the Constitution is that the proper venue for holding a president accountable is...
Well, the proper, but this isn't the proper venue.
Yes, it is. That's how they would rule. Listen, that's how I would rule.
Yeah, but I mean, because this is like the most improper person we've ever seen. He's not just the most improper president. He's like an embarrassment to any people that are human race.
I agree with you, but the proper venue for holding a president accountable is the is impeachment and removal. Now, the problem that we're going to have is Mitch McConnell. They're already on Fox News. I don't know if you watch that thing. I do, so you don't have to, but they're already on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. They're already on Fox News saying that that Mitch McConnell needs to change the Senate rules so that they don't have a trial. They need to quash this trial. They need to stop this trial. They need to end this trial. Obviously, it's because there's so many people that are dirty in our Senate.
Oh, Randy, it's like I love the word you use, a plethora.
Plethora, yes. Well, that's the problem, okay? And here it is right now. This is on Jeanine Pirro's stupid show. Tom Fitton, who is he's a hack from a Judicial Watch, Larry Klayman's, the Citizens United people. It said, oh, money is people. Corporations are people, and the way they speak is with their money. Money is speech. Oh, my God. This is what corrupted our entire country. So now they're on the TV saying out loud that Mitch McConnell has to kill the trial in the Senate.
And if I were the Senate Majority Leader, I'd tell the House, this is dead on arrival.
Dead on arrival.
We're changing the rules. We're going to kill it before it even gets out of the cradle here. And we're not going to follow up with an impeachment trial here. We're not required to under the Constitution. And we see the corruption here.
I told you.
And we're not going to buy into and play your game and ratify your abuse of power by further harassing the president with an unnecessary impeachment trial. They should throw the charges out like a judge would if the prosecutors were corrupt.
But good old Mitch McConnell is like, yeah, if they do, we're going to have to listen to it. We'll have a trial. I mean, what's up with that?
What's up with that?
Well, those are the current rules, and I think American citizens should be asking Mitch McConnell to exercise his prerogatives as majority leader. They run the Senate there and change the rules. It's not a suicide pact. They can change the rules to protect the Constitution.
I agree.
The Constitution says that the sole trier of the president is the Senate. But that's what it says. It doesn't say shall try upon indictment. These people are so disinterested in democratic norms. They're so disinterested in the Constitution. They're so disinterested in holding a traitor, treacherous, lying sack of self-enriching blob that this president is accountable. They will actually sit there and watch a genocide happen. I mean, this is just so unfreaking believable. You have never seen anything like this ever. And frankly, there's a whole propaganda network dedicated to misinforming and disinforming the American people. As a matter of fact, over the weekend, John Brennan was talking about how this disinformation campaign is literally enabling the destruction of our very democracy.
But I feel an obligation as a former senior U.S. official to call out Mr. Trump when he lies to the American public, when he totally fabricates information just to advance his own political agenda.
Really?
So I am going to continue doing it because people at this time, I think, really need to speak out and speak up. and it's clear that the Republicans in the Senate are just going along. I've had many issues with the Democrats over the years, but I've never had seen anything like the Republicans right now as far as just misrepresentations of the truth because of what Donald Trump has done.
Well, here's why we're here, because there is a we have two sets of realities that live here. There is a 40% of the country that is only getting fed one reality.
Oh my God.
Arguably 60% are getting what I would argue is reality. But this is a huge problem. And it's clear that whether it doesn't matter if your voters are only hearing this one thing, are we capable of governing ourselves with a disinformation campaign that's happening like this?
Well, until the senior officials of the Republican Party push back against Trump, I think this is going to be a very, very long and difficult fight. Because this dishonesty, this disinformation now is just overwhelming and inundating the airwaves. Whether it be social media platforms or a lot of the news networks, they continue just to put out false information, and it gains traction. And I can understand how so many Americans then are confused.
Many Americans are going to send me emails going, how could you put a traitor like John Brennan on television?
Yeah, well, you know what I mean? I worked 33 years in national security, and I feel good about my record. And there's a lot of false information out there that now people take as gospel.
This is dangerous, and it is happening. And the idea that the President of the United States says the media is the enemy of the people, that facts are the enemy, that news is the enemy, that journalism is the enemy, and that journalists can be hacked up with bone saws, and he doesn't consider that corruption, even when that journalist is an American green card holder writing for the Washington Post. Okay, we are so beyond the looking glass. We are so in trouble. The next days, the next year is going to decide, do we have a republic?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
And by the way, you've got John Brennan on. You ought to ask Director Brennan, what did Peter Strzok mean when he texted Lisa Page on December 15, 2016?
Senator,
quote,
can we?
Senator, no, Chuck, let me finish. Think our sisters have begun leaking like
Ukraine?
Mad, scorned and
what
worried.
What does this have to do with Ukraine?
It has everything to do with Ukraine. Now listen. Think our sisters have begun leaking like mad, scorned and worried and political. They're kicking into overdrive. Now that was December 15th. 6 days before that is when we first started hearing the CIA leaking about Russia supporting the Trump campaign. That is why Trump is so upset. He had this false narrative that resulted in him being set up by James Comey on January 16th. Then he has a special counsel appointed that has hampered his entire investigation, his entire administration. And now, once that was proven false, he would like to know, and I would like to know, and I know his supporters would like to know, where did this all come from? Who planted that false story?
Senator,
who leaked?
It's a true story.
I have my third letter into the Inspector General of the Intelligence Committee asking to just confirm, are you investigating those leaks that Peter Strzok talked about in that text?
Senator, I have no idea why.
No, that's a setup. It is entirely irrelevant to this point.
Why a Fox News conspiracy propaganda stuff is popping up on here? I have no idea.
It is not.
I have no idea why we're going here.
That is
Senator,
because this is underlying exactly why President Trump is upset and why his supporters are upset at the news media.
Okay, this is not about the media. Senator Johnson, please. Can we please answer the question that I asked you instead of trying to make Donald Trump feel better here that you're not criticizing him? I'm just trying to ask you a simple question of what made you wince. I'm asking a simple question about you clearly were upset that somehow there was an implication that military aid was being frozen because the president wanted an investigation. Why did you wince?
Because I didn't want those connected. And I was supporting the aid, as is Senator Murphy, as is everybody that went to that initial inauguration. But here's the salient point of why I came forward. When I asked the president about that, he completely denied it. He adamantly denied it. He vehemently, angrily denied it. He said, I'd never do that.
Well, that's all you need is the president's word because, it's worth nothing. And I have to tell you that that Senator Ron Johnson was on the same trip that Senator Chris Murphy was on. And last week, as I told you, Senator Ron Johnson admitted that there was a quid pro quo and that he knew about it, and that Ambassador Sondland, he's a Trump $1 million donor who got this ambassadorship. He also described a quid pro quo involving a commitment from Zelensky to write a statement saying that he would investigate Hunter Biden in exchange for the military aid. And everybody was alarmed. They were all running around with their hair on fire, including Ron Johnson, who supports Ukraine. And he's actually chairman of the subcommittee that oversees that part of the world, Ukraine. He said he raised the issue with Donald Trump, and now Donald Trump has denied it, so he's cool with it. He's fine. Chris Murphy actually was on after Ron Johnson and said, that's scary. I'm scared.
Did you ever hear Senator Johnson wince? Did he talk about it with you? You guys were traveling a lot together. I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, first of all, Ron's a good friend, but I'm deeply scared by the positioning that Republicans have chosen to take. That interview was just a giant green light to the President of the United States to continue to solicit foreign interference in U.S. elections. He telegraphed that he's going to ask China to do the same thing that he asked the Ukrainians to do this week, because Republicans are allowing him to do it. And this entire country should be scared that at a moment when we need patriots, what we are getting is blind partisan loyalty.
Damn right. So now there are 4 Republicans who are breaking the big Trump wall, okay? The wall that he wanted to build between his law breaking and himself, and the bricks in the wall are Republican senators like Mitch McConnell. So now, over the weekend, actually before the weekend, Mitt Romney called the inviting of China into our elections appalling, and said some, strong things. He said it's wrong and appalling when the only American citizen President Trump singles out for Chinese investigation is his political opponent in the midst of the Democratic nomination process. It strains credulity to suggest that it's anything other than politically motivated. Yes, because China is one of the most corrupt places on the freaking planet, as is Russia. So this idea he's fighting corruption is hysterical in its absurdity. I mean, this is farce. This is like any GOP person right now or any Trump supporter telling you they're the patriot. It's a farce at this point. So all of a sudden, Mitt Romney became, the pariah, and Trump is, we should impeach Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is a bastard. He's a bad guy. He's this, he's that. So I think Romney is running. I've said to you, Howard has said this for months now, that Romney was going to primary Trump. But then you have all these primaries in Arizona, in Kansas, in Nevada, in South Carolina, the GOP primaries. They've been canceled because Trump thinks that the 3 people that are challenging him already, Joe Walsh and Bill Weld, and I forget who the other one is. He thinks they're the 3 stooges, so he doesn't take them seriously, and so he told the GOP to cancel primaries. Now, primaries have been canceled before when there is no opposition to the candidate, but there is opposition to Trump in his party. And so canceling these primaries is another act of corruption. Whether he considers Bill Weld, a legitimate, primary opponent, that's not up to him. That's not up to him. And if Mitt Romney's going to run, which kind of looks like he is. Oh, Sanford's the other one. So if Mitt Romney is going to run, then, obviously, you need to have a primary in major states, right? But they've already canceled those. So look, this man is literally insulating himself from every possible avenue to hold him accountable for turning us into some kind of a also-ran autocracy, kleptocracy, oligarchy, commie country, whatever. I don't even know what to call it anymore. I really don't. But it ain't democracy and it's not a republic. Rob on Long Island.
Hey, Randy, welcome back to the radio. Wanted to say that at first. Secondly, can you imagine right now what the economy would be like if we weren't spending $700 billion on military corporations manufacturing in the United States, because literally that's the only thing right now that's propping up the economy. I mean, it's
okay.
It's just crazy to me. I can't imagine, because we've gotten rid of most of our other manufacturing. The only thing
what if we put the money into infrastructure? What if we did that instead? Yeah, what if we actually put the money into cleaning up our waterways? What if we actually put the money into building, wind turbines or solar panels? What if we actually put the money into repairing our roads, bridges, tunnels? You know what I mean? Like construction. What about that? You think that would do the economy good?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I don't know how people, can be so blind about military spending. I'm not really sure. I mean, if you build a bomb and then you explode the bomb, that's the end of your investment right there. You see what I mean? But if you build, let's say a wind turbine, okay, then you have manufacturing jobs, and then you have installation jobs, and then you have maintenance jobs, and it just keeps rippling through the economy. The actual truth about military spending is it slows economic growth. Oh, yes, it does. It has a very negative impact on economic growth. They have studied military spending over a 20-year period, and a 1% increase in military spending literally decreases the country's economic growth by 9%, because it's a finite thing. You spend the money, you get like pretty much nothing in return. Also, the idea of infrastructure, which is a wonderful gift that keeps on giving. We know this because FDR invested in infrastructure. We had the best economy ever when we invest in ourselves. Everything from the arts all the way to tunnels, bridges, roads, all that stuff. Yeah, it's like a works program. It actually puts people to work. And guess what? When they get paid decent wages in a 70% consumer-driven economy, which is what we got over here, that actually increases GDP. It increases every good thing that you want to see in an economy. Also, if we did a health care bill that took down the price of prescription drugs by, let's say H.R. 3, the House Pelosi bill, became something the Senate would sign on to. Let's just say that they were interested in doing that for you. Then the amount of money that you would save would actually be spent in the economy, and that would also increase GDP. And if we did a public option at the very least, right, where I could get rid of my $2,000 a month healthcare premium, I'd have $2,000 a month more to spend on our economy. You see what I mean? How do people get this stupid? I'm not really sure why they want to call me up and say something so dumb, thinking it'll go unnoticed. I'm not sure who how lightweight you really think I am, but take me on. Come on, let's do this thing. Rich in Denver.
Hey, good afternoon, Randy. How you doing?
Good.
I've said this to you before. The gene pool needs chlorine,
Something.
As Forrest Gump would say, stupid is, stupid does.
It's just amazing how people, think this economy works or opine about, military spending is the greatest thing. It's the worst thing ever. It's absolutely the worst thing ever. Peace dividends. Have they never heard that term?
Yeah. As the great Smedley Butler once said, Randy, and I know you being in the military.
War is a racket.
Yep. And like you always say, two things you always say, we won't be destroyed from without, we'll be destroyed from within.
And it's happening. You can see it. You can absolutely see it.
In chaos, you can steal. Hey, I got a couple theories. I was telling Scotty, I got two theories on the media and why, you were questioning why it blew up overnight with Turkey and the Kurds. I think, and obviously Putin's the puppet master. He's pulling strings on Erdogan, and he's like, you basically, do what I want. And they see Trump, they see what's going on in the United States.
It's not so one-sided. It's not that one-sided. They actually made a deal, right? Because Russia wants Syria, And Erdogan wants the Kurds gone. So that was a deal. You could go kill your Kurds, go kill them. But in the end, we want Syria. That's what we want. And so that was a deal.
But he hasn't done it until now. I mean, why hasn't he done it in the last year and a half or the last year?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, what does Erdogan actually? What did he show Donald Trump that he had?
He got over Trump.
Yeah, and who gave it to him, and how did he get it, and what is it?
And what is
I will tell you this little nugget. Trump owns. I've been there. Trump owns Trump Tower Istanbul in Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got a financial interest over there, and the country has gone all commie. China too. I mean, the whole freaking world is going communist, and America is sitting there going, yeah, let's ally ourselves with Russia. Let's ally ourselves with China. Let's ally ourselves with Turkey. Are you freaking kidding me? Robert in Naples.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
Hey, I called Marco Rubio, but you were talking about Mitt Romney, and I was thinking, his dog, his horse is that dressage horse, the dancing horse. Hey, that horse has got to be like the nervous horse in the stable because of Godfather 1. I don't know if you remember when you piss off the dime.
Okay, here's a trivia question for you. What was the horse's name?
Oh, my God. I should know this. I don't know this one. Go ahead. What is it?
Khartoum.
That's it. Yep. Oh, wow. I love you, Randy. Well, hold on. I called about Marco Rubio.
All right.
I actually called his office today, and I got some guy in Miami, and I told him, look, I know him. I'm not going to I'm not going to be able to talk to him. I go, but can you just listen to what I have to say? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I gave him my rich white guy from Naples voice, and I told him, I said, listen, I wanted him to think I was one of his constituents. And I said, listen, Marco Rubio once said about Hillary Clinton that, if we don't stop it here, it's against this one this time. It could be against us this time, the next time. What happened to that Marco Rubio? I asked the guy, and then I said to him, listen, would Marco Rubio, he hasn't said anything about, foreign countries interfering in elections. I go, but would you want his competitor to go to Raul Castro and say, hey, the Rubio family?
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, give me something about the Rubio family. We know they didn't really leave under, because of Castro. They left with Batista 3-4 years before. Yeah. So I know he wanted you to believe that the Castros were the ones that made him leave, but no, they left way before. And
that Marco Rubio is a pro-communist, pro-Russian Cuban is so bizarre that there has to be something else that's making him cover for Donald Trump taking help from Vladimir Putin.
I'll tell you what it is. He didn't win the election, just like Trump didn't win Florida and Rubio didn't win Florida and Scott didn't win Florida. This go around, but during the Trump's election cycle, Rubio was up. They didn't win. They know they didn't win. And then I guarantee you, Trump told Rubio, you didn't win.
What do you mean he didn't win?
I don't think he won by vote.
Oh, well, you can't say that. Let's not go off over there. Please don't do it.
All right, Randy, I love
stop
you.
it. I love you too. Please, let's stick to what we got. What we got's bad enough. Mike in Tampa.
Yeah, hey, Randy. I feel like the trend is that Trump only calls out corruption in democracies.
Yes.
It never seems to be against authoritarians.
Yeah, it's very interesting. He only calls out corruption against Joe Biden's son, but he doesn't call out corruption against Ivanka. He doesn't call out corruption against Junior. He doesn't call out corruption in China, who steals from us intellectual property. He doesn't call out corruption in Russia, where everybody has to kick up to Vladimir Putin in order to stay in business or open a business. He doesn't call out corruption in Turkey, where Erdogan, I don't know, there's a great YouTube video. People ought to go look at it, where Erdogan was here in the United States, and he told his thugs to go beat up protesters here in America, and nobody stopped him. I mean, this is just sick that he loves these guys. He freaking loves these guys. Why? Because he realizes that people that work for a living, that people that fight, for democracy, he considers them all schmucks. You're all a bunch of losers. He's done with trying to earn a living. He's done with it. He wants to cheat.
It's might is right. It's like the rich getting the right to tax code kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. It absolutely is. And you have
to them that's natural. Democracy is too messy. They want
and the people are the
people with power calling the shots.
And the people are they're messy. People are messy. They all have their different things. They all have their different needs. They all have their different screw them. Screw them. Just take all the money, take all the oil, take all the gas, take it all and divide it up between the 6 people that you've decided to partner with and have the heads of the 5 families rule the world. There are no peoples. There are no democracies. There's only petrodollars and electrodollars and shekels and rubles and pounds. That's it. That's all there is for these people.
Yep, totally. I agree.
And to have such an anti-democratic president, to have an anti-Republican president, to have a president who doesn't believe in the rule of law, but instead believes in oligarchy and believes in power, believes might is right, believes in strong and wrong, believes in telling the people one thing and doing the exact opposite, telling him that you're fighting corruption when you're the most corrupt person ever to be sworn in as the president of the United States, and that's saying something. Because we had presidents who endorsed slavery. For God's sake, we had people we had presidents who believed that human beings were chattel. So that's saying something to say that he's the most corrupt, and he is. Now we have to have a conversation, though, and I'm out of time here today. But we'll be right back here tomorrow. We'll be right back here about Biden's response. Do you think he's up for this? I have questions. I'm not sure. I don't see an aggressive pushback. I don't see a defense of my family. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. I don't get this entire campaign to date.